For those of you who don't know what, I think it's the first line in the Buddha Speaks of Amitabha Sutra, the one that we sang tonight. The Jeta Grove in the Garden of the Benefactor. For those of you who don't know what that means, I've got a story about it. There was a wealthy merchant, and he went into the city to visit a wealthy friend of his. And all of a sudden, one night, while he was visiting the friend, real late at night, he heard all these noises clanking and clunking downstairs. And then he went to sleep, and he woke up again, and he still heard the noises about 2 a.m. And so he went downstairs, and he asked his friend, "What are you doing down here, right? Is the king coming for dinner tomorrow or something?" And they said, no, it's the Buddha. And he had never heard of the Buddha before. But when he heard of the Buddha, he felt real happy inside and everything. And he really, really wanted to meet the Buddha. And he said, "Well, I want to meet him. I want to meet the Buddha." And a friend told him where it was. And so he was so sincere when he heard the Buddha's name, and he didn't even know who the Buddha was, but he just made him really happy that the Buddha, even though it was 2 a.m, he got those feelings, and he made a light, and the man could see the light, and he thought it was dawn in the morning. So he said, "I'll go right now," and he left. And usually at 2 a.m, there wouldn't be a gatekeeper, so the gates would be shut, and there wouldn't be any way to get out. But the Buddha, with his spiritual powers, made the gate open. And he walked out, and he walked to where his friend had told him where the Buddha was, and he met the Buddha. And he said to the Buddha, "I want you to stay, because even though when he got there, he didn't know what to do." So he stood there, and then some gods came down, and they changed themselves into looking like bhikshus, and they circled the Buddha 3 times, and they bowed, and then they kneeled. So he decided, well, now I know what to do, so I'll go do that. And he walked around the Buddha 3 times, he bowed to him 3 times, and he knelt. And he said to the Buddha that he wanted the Buddha to stay all the time, because even though he hadn't met the Buddha before, he had just heard the name of the Buddha, that he really felt happy inside. And the Buddha said yes, that he would like to stay, but he's got 1,200 bhikshus following him around. And they would need a place to stay. So he said he'd find a place for him to stay. So the merchant went looking all over, and the Buddha was so perfect and everything that the merchant couldn't find a piece of land that he thought was suitable for the Buddha. But finally he found a piece of land that he thought was suitable for the Buddha. And it was the prince's flower garden. And the prince's name was Jeta. And he went to Jeta, the prince, and asked him how much he wanted for his flower garden. The prince said, "Well, if you can cover all the land with gold coins, I'll give you my flower garden." And the merchant wanted the land so bad for the Buddha that he got his servants to get up all the gold in the storehouses and pack them very carefully, and then take them over, and he would set them one by one all over the land. So he set them all over the land, and went to the prince and said, "I did it. I put gold coins all over your land, and now it's mine." And the prince said, "No, I was just joking." And then the merchant thought for a second and said, "Well, if you're going to be king, and you were just joking, then I'm going to tell all the people that you lie, that you don't keep your word. So the prince thought a little bit and said, all right, the land's yours, but you didn't put gold coins on the trees, so they're mine. And so I'll donate them to the Buddha. I'll give them to the Buddha, and you give the Buddha your land, and then the Buddha will have a place to stay. And since the prince was higher than just the merchant, he's always mentioned first in the sutras, the Jeta Grove. And then it says the garden of the benefactor of orphans in solitary, because the merchant donated a lot of money to orphanages and to old people's homes. So he's called the benefactor of orphans in solitary. And that's what that line means.
What sutra?
The Buddha speaks of Amitabha Sutra, the one that we sing. We recite. The one that's in the morning, noon, and recreation.
Yes. Really?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know. What? Sure? No, I don't want. I don't want.
If you don't know what it is.
I don't know. Where talk? Where? This talking? No.
Jeta Grove in the garden of the benefactor of orphans in solitary.
I don't know what this talking about.
It's not in Chinese.
I don't know who talking. And this time, I like you make stories yourself. You have story samples.
Okay.
Okay. Make a story for everybody. Believe Buddhism. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Oh, okay.大师光明一入世，有生智者显照出。邪心劣解凡愚人，无有能见此光明。若有闻此光持别，能生清净身心解，永断一切诸以往，速成无上功德场。有圣三昧能出现，眷属庄严皆自在。 一切十方诸国度，佛子众会无伦体。大士光明已入世，这个菩萨的光明也像前边呢所说这个宫殿妙宝灵香以图影一个样的。有福德的人就能见着这光，没有福德的人就见不着。有深智者显照出，有大智慧的人，这个大士所放的光明都能照出到这个有大智慧的人。邪信劣解翻于人或者那个信旁门外道的那种邪知邪见的，他信呢也是信，但是他信邪不信正信心是有，但是信的是邪的，是旁门外道的，他知见也不正当既自私又自利，没有真正的正知正见。劣解，劣就是不善于解就是这个明白的很少也就是不明白的人，愚痴的人。不过这个愚痴比这个劣解比那愚痴人呢又明白一点。这个劣解的二乘声闻缘觉，凡愚人和这个凡夫没有智慧的人，无有能见此光明，他们都不会见着这个光明饶有闻此光识别，这个闻也就是见着，有这个或者听见说佛的光明的，或者见着说佛这个见着佛的光明的有种种不同，每一个人所见的不同这叫光识别个人所见的佛所放的光明不同能生清净深信解。你要是听见这种的经，或者见着佛的光，你能生清净的深信解，永断一切诸以往你永断是不是一时断，是时时断，时时都没有这个疑慧心，不是这个时候没有疑慧心，等一等又生出疑慧心了，这个时候精进，等一等又懒惰了这个时候一个时候有信心，过一个时候又生了怀疑了这就不叫永断。永断是时时刻刻都没有怀疑那么无论任何的时候都没有怀疑，所以这永断一切诸以往你要一有怀疑就对佛法就不相应了你没有怀疑就能 速成无上功德床啊！你很快呀就可以成就这个无上的佛果了啊！有胜三昧能出现，有一种殊胜的三昧光明能出现眷属庄严皆自在，你所有的眷属，这光明所有的眷属，你自己所有的眷属都能庄严皆自在，很自在的一切十方诸国度，所有一切十方诸佛国度，佛子众会无伦匹所有的佛的弟子在佛的法会里边没有人可以比的，你这种功德是无量无边的。有妙莲花光庄严，亮等3000大千劫，其身端坐系充满，是此三昧神通力。复有时刹为陈述，妙好莲花所围绕，诸佛子众于中坐，诸此三昧为神力，须是长久善因缘，具足修行佛功德。此等众生饶菩萨，细供合掌观无言。譬如明月在星中，菩萨处中亦复然。大士所行法入世，如此三昧为神力。有妙莲花光庄严，这个有一个大宝莲花微妙相结，放出种种的光来庄严这个莲花。莲花有多大呢？有3000大千世界那么大。咱们叫3000大千世界呢，咱们这一个日月一个须弥山，一个4大部洲这叫一个世界。有1000个这一个世界，这叫小千世界，就是1000个日月，1000个须弥山，1000个4大部洲，这叫一个小千世界。寄居1000个小千世界，这叫中千世界。再寄居1000个中千世界，这叫一个大千世界。因为3次都说这个千，所以叫3000大千世界。其身端坐系充满这个佛菩萨端坐在这个大宝莲花的上边是此三昧神通力。这就是这种的三昧神通的力量。复有时刹为陈述，又有十佛刹那么多的微陈述，妙好莲花所围绕，那么多的妙好莲花来围绕这个大宝莲花。 诸佛子众于中坐，所有的佛的弟子都在这个莲花里边坐着。住此三昧为神力，住在这种的正定里边，这个有大为神力。许世成就善因缘，在许世这前生因地所成就的这个善因缘，具足修行佛功德，已经具足圆满佛功德。此等众生扰菩萨，这说这个所有的众生来围绕这个放光这个菩萨，细供合掌观无厌，那么完全呢，他们合起掌来观看这个菩萨没有疲厌。所以释迦牟尼佛在因地的时候这个为供养佛向佛来献花用一条腿在那儿站了7天7夜这就是合掌观无厌，观看佛没有疲厌。俺们在佛前呢，能站一日一夜，那么已经觉得受不了了。释迦牟尼佛用一条腿站了7日7夜。那么，譬如明月在星中，这个比方那个明月在虚空，这个明月在众星里边，那个月亮那么大，这个众星来拱伏它。菩萨处中已复然，这个菩萨处在这个大众海会里边呢，也就好像那个明月在那个星里边是一样的。大事所行，法入世这个菩萨所行的这个法门呢，就是这样子，入此三昧为神力，入到这一种的光明三昧里边呢，这种大为神力。我告诉你们，谁无缘无故离开金山寺，那都会堕落的，无论哪一个。在金山寺这儿，你看像个样子所以离开金山寺我就不我不保险的，这个我就不给严书论死无论哪一个离开金山寺的我就不保险的在金山寺里边呢，我都不一定保险何况离开的有的人不知自量就想要住茅棚去修行这么几年把光阴都空过了听得懂我讲好了，现在轮到这个果童了哪里讲的什么？所以无论哪一个受过比丘戒的人，不经过这个许可出去之后回来可以的就要走在比丘后边这是第一次。要第二次这么偷着就跑了没有经过许可回来还可以，但是要走到比丘尼后边要第三次再走了想回来不论犯什么过都可以原谅的。那么想回来还是可以但是怎么样呢？要走到沙弥尼后边这是不要 对大家讲呢，这就是一种这个，为什么你无缘无故跑了，人家在这修行这么认真，你回来还走到人前面，这是不对的。所以谁要是奉常住的命令，说是要叫你好像这个国道到洛杉矶那儿去了，在那儿想开一个坐禅班，那么这样呢回来可以奉这个常住的这种命令去回来，这就是不会降级的。那么我无缘无故自己到外边又回来，过了一个月或者2个月，这回来都要走到后边的，就不能走在人前边了。因为我们在这儿不是这么容易的，都是很辛苦的你跑到外边去，没有经过大家的同意，跑到外边去，这是完全对这个金山寺是不合法的。
On Sunday.
你这you first say that way. Say everybody now I like you crying.
Quiet.
Crying. I like crying. Try.
Try what?
Try make everybody crying. Don't try.
I don't know how.
She's told that. Told. Now, everybody, I like you, everybody crying first. I'm talking second. Okay.
Everybody has to cry first, then I'll talk.
You see, 他们都不听的话，他们大家都笑不哭。Okay, talking.
On Sunday, the master told me that I should give a lecture tonight, and since he wouldn't be here on Monday because we have a tape of the Pure Conduct chapter, he told me today. And what he told me to do was that I should tell about how my feelings have changed since I was 4 when I came here. And how I left Oregon because my father wanted to go and listen to Mr. Nyland, who was on the East Coast. Well, when I came here and I was 4, I can remember the temple in Chinatown, and I got to go up on the roof once. And when I went up on the roof, I could see a whole lot of Chinatown. And I couldn't remember what the building looked like. But yesterday, when my mother and I were in Chinatown, she pointed out the building. And I didn't remember, but I saw where I had been. And I hadn't remembered it, so I had forgotten what it looked like. And I got to see again. And I think a lot of things have changed in San Francisco. And after I left here, when I was about 6, I went to first grade in McMinnville, Oregon. And a year after that, we had to leave. My father wanted to go to Mr. Nyland. And there was one thing that I valued more than anything else. but I had to give it up. It was a go-kart that my father and I had spent weeks building. And I really wanted to bring it, and also my bunk bed, but we had to leave them there because there was too much in the car already. So we had a big garage sale, and we sold all sorts of things. And we sold my bunk bed, and I gave my go-kart to my best friend. And I still remember when I left that it was really hard for me to leave because I liked McMinnville so much. And this year when we went back to McMinnville, one of our friends that my father had taught photography to in the college that he taught in McMinnville, he had just got his flying license. And we got to fly over McMinnville in his airplane, in the airplane that he rented. And on the way there, I got to fly the airplane. And when we flew over it, I got to see my old school and my old house. And they were all straight down at the ground. And we're circling around up here. And when we went, the scariest thing that we had on the trip, actually it was fun for me, but it was really scary too. We went up Ramhorn Mountain is what it's called, and it's as steep as a cliff, it seems like, when you're going up. And our car was cram-jammed full of stuff, so it was pretty heavy, and it didn't want to make it up the hill. And if we stopped, we'd never get going again. And here was a road construction sign ahead, and we had to stop. And when we stopped, we just sat there for a little bit. And then finally, we got our car moving up the hill again. And when we got to the top, we saw a rest area, and we just started going down. And we saw a sign for a hairpin turn. Right 2 feet in front of us, there was a hairpin turn. And we just remembered the sign a little ways back. And the hairpin turn went like that. So we're going straight along. And this is where I was sure we were going to go flying off the cliff. We're heading straight for the hairpin turn, and phew, we're around it. And then when we got to the East Coast, it was hard at first to stay there because I hadn't seen Mission Island before, and I sort of remembered this place, and I had to make all new friends and go to a public school, but then they opened a school for the people in the group. And when they opened the school, I started going to that instead of the public school. And it was hard at first because everything was just getting started and nothing was organized, so nothing was perfect. Like, you'd come to school one morning and nobody would be there, or just the kids would be there running around and screaming outside. And the teachers would come at 10 o'clock because it was snowy. Or one day we got to school and it was 9:30 and there was only 5 of us there and 3 teachers. And all the rest of the people couldn't get their cars started, and it was icy all over. And public school, we decided to come to school, even though public school might not have been open, we weren't sure. But when we got there was only 5 people until about 10:30. So we just closed school that day. And it was a funny day because my father had gone to work, and I walked to school a little bit, but when it's cold like that, I get a ride. And so I had to walk back, and I got really cold. And I got back home, and when I got inside, my feet were so cold that when I got inside, the heat didn't do anything to them. They were really numb. They just got real numb, and then they started hurting and hurting. And then, just like that, it was gone, the pain. And we have a picture of Amitabha Buddha hanging up in our living room that we got here when we came here when I was 4. And it's a really nice one. It's like the one that's on the second floor. He's standing on a lotus flower. And I always thought, well, how in the world can he stand on those little prickers on the lotus flower? Because it's like you hear of people sleeping on a bed of nails. And I thought, oh dear, his feet must really hurt. But then when I come here, and I know that Buddhas don't feel pain and everything, so now I know why he can stand on those little prickers on the lotus flower. And then, when I was 7, I didn't know about this, but my mother and Shifu were in New York, and she called my father, and my father said, well, we can't come because it would just be for one day. And he didn't tell me about it at all. And so, finally when I got here, my mother told me that. And my father hadn't told me, even though we were coming here. But before we came here, it was about a year before we came here, that I knew that we were coming here for summer the next year. And I was really excited because I was going to get to see my mother for the first time in 7 years. And so when we got here, I had had a picture of her before. I had written her a couple letters, and I asked her to send me a picture. She sent me a picture. So I had that a couple months before we came here. And when on the way here, it was really nice because we saw my grandparents for a day, and the first day we went through four states, and we just stopped for lunch and just stopped for a couple seconds, and then we'd get going again. And so the last day we got to stop, and we only had like 3 or 4 hours of driving, and we got to stop for a couple hours. And in Utah, we got to stop at Bonneville Salt Flats, where the world speed record was set. And I've still got a piece of Bonneville Salt Flats in the front of our car. I went out and it was really bright because it's white salt, and there was a big puddle of water, and I had to walk around it. And I stuck my hand in, and when I pulled my hand out, after about 5 minutes, my hand was crystallized with salt. And I took a stone and I broke a piece of Bonneville Salt Flats out and took it and put it in the car and rolled up in some tissue paper. Then I washed my hands, got all that salt off. And I was wondering how they can set the world speed record on such funny stuff, because they could hit a hole and in 2 seconds it'd be all rolled up like a little teeny ball. And then we finally got here, and the first place we went to was to my Aunt Gail's house. And we called up the temple, and we were planning on staying there for 3 days and just coming to the temple a little bit. But it ended up that we came to the temple the first day, and we stayed here a whole week, that we were going to spend half of it at my Aunt Gail's. And then we went to Washington. We went up to Seattle, Washington, and at that time I didn't know too much about that Hung Yo and Hung Ju had walked up and bowed the up to Marble Mountain, which is a ways away from Seattle. And did you take Route 5? What route did you take? I think we went on 101 a little bit. And we got up to Seattle and we got to see a whole bunch of friends. But when I got back here, I flew back, and it was in the middle of a Om Mani Padme Hum session, and it really got me, I don't know how to explain it, but I was really energetic because there was so much energy coming out. And then during the Chan, I was in Hunglu's office, and when I would go to bed at night, I could fall asleep just like that because there was so much energy making me drowsy and sleepy. So I just lay back and poof, I was asleep. And during that time, I learned to meditate. And the longest I meditated in the Om Mani Padme Hum session was I meditated 2.5 hours in a row. And that was pretty good for me because it's hard for me to sit still. And I didn't know that there was going to be a Chan session after the recitation, but it was just pop because it was the end of the Om Mani Padme Hum session, and I was thinking, what a relief, now I'll have all the time until the next session without having everybody just sitting still all the time. But then there was the Chan, and during that Chan I was outside a lot. I liked to walk around and everything. And when the next session came up, the Guanyin session, I didn't go out very much because I had gotten used to being indoors from the last session. And when I came here at first, it was hard for me to sing the mantras and everything. But when my father and I came, we didn't know about the bowing, and like everybody we knew, we started bowing, and then on the third bow we were already down on the bowing cushion, and everybody else had just done a half bow. And we did that for about a couple days until we really got used to the bowing. And that's when we left after that week. But when I came back, I hadn't become a disciple yet, and I was really worried about becoming a disciple. It was just really something that I thought would be hard. But when I finally became a disciple, it was the easiest thing I had ever done. And my feeling has changed a lot, because I used to think, well, Mr. Nyland could teach me all I could know, but he's trying to teach everybody about your third eye, just your third eye, the one right up here. And he says that's the only one there is, and that you should eat onions and garlic and that kind of thing because it gives you magical powers. But when I came here, I learned a lot different. And when he has meetings, he only has them 2 nights a week, but now he has more of them. And kids don't usually go to him because, like, he uses big, gigantic words that nobody can understand. Not even some as a grown-up. And it varies between 2 hours and 2.5 hours how long he talks. And what happens is you just go there and you sit down and you wait for him to go up and sit down and talk. And after seeing Sherfu in his robes and everything, and then you see Mr. Nyland in a Levi jacket and a pair of old scruffy pants, you really get a shock. And during the school, all the kids got to see Mr. Nyland a little more than they had used to. And then I thought he was really special to see and even to get a hello from him. But now you come here and Shifu says hello to you all the time. And when I see Mr. Nyland, he's a nice man, and he does things sort of like Shifu, except he's married, and every weekend he goes and he sees his wife, and she lives in Boston and he lives in New York. And he gets his whole ruckus together and everybody goes over there and cleans the house for her and waters her garden and picks her food. But there's one thing that when I came here I learned a lot different about than when I was there. Because he eats meat. He encourages meat eating by eating the meat himself. And when you go to a barn day, is what it's called, and you work there for a long time, you get to have lunch there. But you have to pay for your lunch. And it's not like donating, it's paying. You have to do it, or you don't get any lunch. So, and you also have barn dues, so you have to pay $15 a month. And when you go there, sometimes you have chicken and meatloaf and all sorts of that kind of thing. But when I came here, I turned into a vegetarian because Shifu gave a very encouraging lecture about that. About a man, Dharma Master, who was born in a bird's nest, and he had bird's claws, and he would go around and he'd say sutras for dead people and weddings and things so that he could bless them. And then when he got there, he saw the children eating their parents from past lives, and the mother and father eating their relatives, and all that kind of thing. And it really made me, I just stopped eating meat from that day on. And he encouraged becoming a disciple, because he'd talk about a little bit about how to become a disciple, and I'd look around and I'd see that everybody here was a disciple but me. So I finally became a disciple. And what I thought was nice was that everybody who became a disciple on the day that I did believed in Shifu so much that they took the 5 precepts too. The same day they became a disciple. And okay.
Okay.
That's all.
Huh? 如于一方所示现，诸佛子等共围绕，一切方中悉如是，诸此三昧为神力，有胜三昧名方往，菩萨住此广开示，一切方中普现身，回现入定，回从出。所以说呀，这个佛菩萨在这个一方啊所示现，所以说入于一方所示现，诸佛子众共围绕，这所有的菩萨，所有的声闻罗汉都共同啊来围绕这个佛菩萨啊，一切方中悉如是。不但一方这样子，所有的方十方世界都是这样子。住此三昧为神力，住在这个这种的圆融无碍这种三昧的为神力里边。有胜三昧名方往，又有一个殊胜的三昧，名字呢就叫方往三昧。菩萨住此广开示啊，这个所有的这个菩萨住在这种方往三昧里头，来教化众生，一切方中悉现身的，所有一切的方十方世界，这个菩萨呀都去现身说法，回现入定相，回现呢这个从定又出来的相，所以呀用种种的三昧来教化这个所有的十方的众生。那么我前几天呢所讲的有人呢常常生一种妒忌心，那么你有妒忌心，就好像在这个粪呢和尿里头沐浴一样，越沐浴越臭那么你想要清净，就要把这个妒忌心呢除去，要没有妒忌心。你任何人有妒忌心就有一股臭气，没有妒忌心就有一股香气。所以呀你们各位要注意，你们看看这个离开金山寺的人和在金山寺的人有什么分别。今天晚间呢你们各位都要特别的来研究研究这些个问题。一个人好也不怕哪一个人坏，好到极点就该不好了，不好到极点又该好了。所以呀不好正是好的一个开始那好正是一个不好的开始。所以呀我的宗旨就是 everything OK 那么你知道错能改，这就是好；你知道错不改，这就是不好这就是不好。那么各位不要看那个不好的人就没有办法了，不好的人他要改了，大恶者回头大善，大善是要堕落大恶一般这没有什么问题的我今天呢再告诉你们一个这个7、8年以前的一个消息7、8年以前这个消息，就是这果头那时候4岁到这地方来，他旁的什么也不问，就问 Why have rules？ 为什么要有规矩这是你问的You ask question Why like have rules 问这个问题。我说因为你不守规矩，所以要有规矩，你要守规矩就没有规矩。现在我告诉你们
Yesterday, before I came here, I would do a lot of things, and I hadn't known about meditating. But the second time I came here, flying from Seattle, I hadn't really learned to meditate while I'd been here. But when I was here, I tried sleeping sitting up for the first time, and I got up into full lotus, and I sat there, and all of a sudden, pong! One of my legs was sticking straight out in front of me. So I just stuck it under, and I was sitting in half lotus, and I started sliding and slipping, and in the morning I wound up on my back. But now I can sort of sleep sitting up. I sleep in a vertical position. It isn't in full lotus or half lotus, it's just a vertical position. And a lot of the time I start slipping and sliding like usual, and slide and end up laying down in the morning with my feet freezing because they slipped right out of the covers. And when I came here the second time, the surprising thing was that since we were in the middle of a meditation sit and I didn't know how to meditate, it wasn't really very good. I knew how to meditate a little bit, but what I knew was not the greatest thing. And when I came here, I wanted to become a novice the same day I became a disciple, but it didn't work. And I have to sit in full lotus for 2 hours before I can become a novice without the top of me moving. Right now I'm not doing too good for that. And all my life I've always hated it when little kids started crying. Little babies, they always start crying in the middle of a conversation, and then I like to run over and I like to rock the little crib so that they won't cry anymore. And my father always tells me, well, they cry because that's the only thing they know how to say. But when I came here, I found out completely different. It's because they're suffering. They've been suffering from the minute they've been born. Because they start crying and crying and crying. And they always just cry all the time. In the middle of the night they start crying. The only thing you can do is feed them. And then they stop crying. And I found that when I came here and I wound up not fishing, I had a big plan from the day I left Seattle that I was going to go deep sea fishing when I came back here. But then practically the second night, I think it was, that lecture, it told about some cause and effect, and it got me right off the hook with fishing. And I've always liked to go on little exploring trips whenever I could. I like to go out in the back of our backyard. And I like to run through the fields and down into the woods and jump on the stones through the water, try not to get my feet wet. And I always wind up all muddy and yucca, and I hate it. And like I'll go out into the woods and I'll find a neat tree, and I think, well, I'll build a tree fort in it. And then I start trudging back home, and because thunk, I slipped and fell face first in a mud puddle. That ruins my day for the whole rest of my day. So I can't go out there and build that tree fort. And anyway, it's a mile away from my house. So, and when I came here, I felt like inside me I was all tied up in a noodle factory, because with a whole lot of sticky noodles, and I was all wound up in all these vines and everything. And when I became a disciple, I hadn't been feeling good the week before, but after I bowed, before you become a disciple, you have to bow, and I did that bowing, and then I became a disciple, and I felt really happy. It was the happiest day of my life. It was nothing could have been happier. No days that I could think of could have been happier. And that day I felt like a couple of those noodles just went squiggling away as a drop of water hit me, and then since the noodles were sticky, they got wet and they just slipped. They were slippery then, so they fell off. And just a couple days ago I felt like a whole lot of noodles had been cut off, because I started feeling good, and I started not having so many false thoughts. Not as many as I used to have. I used to have a whole lot. I don't have as many, but I still have a lot. And for those of you who weren't here for the lecture that I gave on the cause and effect, well, I can tell you a couple of the cause and effect things. Well, the reason why I stopped fishing was because Shifu gave a lecture on the cause and effect of, if you fish, in the next life you'll become a beggar. And I didn't want to be a beggar in the next life, so I just decided, well, I won't fish anymore. And he said, if you lie, in the next life you'll be cheated. So, like in this life, if you lied a whole lot, in the next life you might be cheated for $1 million, and you didn't have $1 million, so you'd be in debt. And that would be really hard, so. And I'm not sure if this is right, but I sort of thought this might happen too. If you told the truth to people who lied to you, like Shifu said one time that a whole lot of people came in lying and lying and lying, but he didn't pay any attention to them. He just said they were right, and then they stopped lying. And it became the truth. And so I thought, well, if you told the truth to somebody who lied a lot, and you told the truth to them and they believed you, but they thought you were lying, and then they found out it was true, that since you had told the truth, and if you did that a whole lot, you told the truth a lot, then maybe in the next life you might earn $1 million in a very good business deal, instead of losing $1 million and being in debt. And when we were coming here, I was thinking, well, we're going to be going over a whole lot of mountains, like Ramhorn Mountain when we were going away from Oregon. I thought we were going to be hitting a whole lot of really, really steep and high mountains, but we went a flat way, and it was so flat I couldn't believe it, because I thought, well, we're going to be hitting the highest mountains there are. And before we left, I did a report on Lewis and Clark, and we found out that we after we left my grandparents' house on the way here, we went through St. Louis that same day, and we were on the same trail as Lewis and Clark. Because for one reason we knew it, because there was all these big road signs saying Lewis and Clark Hotel, right next stop, 36 miles, or the next town will be in 35 miles, and that's in Utah. It was really nice, but if you were really thirsty and you didn't have any water in the car, you had a big problem, because you could see a town and you go, well, there probably won't be any water there, so let's just drive to the next one. And then you see, well, the next town is in 45 miles. Uh-oh, I better go to sleep so I can wake up as soon as we get to the next water stop. But when I came here, I heard about when the people were fasting for world peace, while Hung Ju and Hung Yo were bowing, people were fasting back here, and I heard that, I think it was Hung Guan, he went on a fast for 2 weeks, and one of the weeks he didn't even drink any water. And that really got me when I'm thinking, well, 45 miles to the next water stop. So, and I wanted to go on a fast for a little bit one day. My mother told me, well, if you're going to go on a fast, you have to be able to do it for 18 days, or you're not supposed to go on a fast. And I didn't think I could do it for 18 days. So.
观音菩萨如秋月，阿弥陀佛定庄严，慈光普照度众生，一心定力